Our next speaker is Dick Bjornseth. Am I saying that right? Okay, good. He's an award-winning artist and photographer whose work has been featured in 14 solo and over 40 other exhibitions around the country. He currently serves as a professor with the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, where he teaches drawing, creativity, and color theory classes. Born in Chicago, Bjornseth graduated from Iowa State University and then began a successful 20-year career as a city planner and urban designer in Houston and South Florida. He served as a planner and urban designer in West Palm Beach, where he chaired the city's Art in Public Places program for 2 years. In 1993, with a shift in career direction, he returned to college and earned an MFA in Studio Arts from Florida State, which is right nearby. Upon graduation, he was selected for FSU's Florence Award and taught a semester in Italy. Oh, lucky guy. In 2007, Bjornseth was awarded a presidential fellowship from SCA to undertake a series of photographs and drawings titled Exotic Tropics. In 2013, he was awarded a second fellowship, a photographic survey titled Modern Relics, Mid-Century Florida Roadside Remnants, and that is what he'll talk about today. So, thank you.
Okay, this project took place last summer, and I took 2 one-week trips up and down the east coast of Florida from Jacksonville down to all the way to Key West, and was looking for remnants of primarily mid-century modern architecture and signage and tourist attractions and all that sort of thing along the east coast of Florida. One of the results of that book was a sort of a limited edition book that I published, Modern Relics, Roadside Remnants of the Sunshine State. And you can see there's a little map here, West Palm. I lived there for a while, but I would obviously mark all the spots I had visited and tried to record some of the remnants of modernism. The term modernism and remnants are almost opposite, but I'm talking about modernism here in the 1950s and 60s sense. One of the things, because of my background as a city planner and urban designer, and with a minor in architecture as well, is I came across an author by the name of Robert Venturi. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him or not, but he's sort of considered the father of postmodernism. And what he did was he, back in, I think it was in the 70s, went out to Las Vegas and with some of his students and other professors and did a study of Las Vegas signage. And his basic conclusion, which was really controversial at the time, was that Las Vegas signage and signage in general and the commercial architecture really is not a bad thing. In fact, it was, if you look at it in the context of the environment and the economics of the time, it made a lot of sense. And he got, there's the expression, less is more, which was sort of a modernist expression. His attitude was, less is a bore. And he ended up featuring what other people would call ugly and ordinary and saying that's not really that bad. It's really quite interesting. Another aspect that I'm adding to this discussion, I guess, is about authenticity. And how do you determine what's authentic and what's fake or what's faux? And then thirdly, this presentation will discuss some of the clues you can look for if you're trying to identify particularly Southern or Florida mid-century modern architecture and signage and that sort of thing. What to look for. When I traveled from north of Jacksonville all the way down to the Keys, particularly the northern part of the state, I couldn't find a lot of remnants of mid-century modern. I don't know exactly why, but they showed up a lot more significantly in southern Florida from, say, West Palm down to the Keys. But here's the Robert Venturi's book. He wrote with his wife, Denise Scott Brown, and Steve Eisenor, another professor there. I think it was at Penn State or University of Pennsylvania, I'm not sure. Here's a quote about his book. The Learning from Las Vegas created a healthy controversy on its appearance in 1972, calling for architects to be more receptive to the tastes and values of common people and less immodest in their elections of heroic and self-aggrandizing monuments. This is in, I think it's outside of Melbourne, Florida, and it's a good example of the kind of architecture and signage that most modern architects would absolutely despise. It's got neon signs, it's got these checkerboard patterns, attention-getting patterns. The architecture is obviously trying to grab your attention, and you still see some remnants of that. They're relatively rare. Here's down on the Keys. Again, architecture and signage dealing with things that the common person finds appealing. Here's a book that recently came out. This person spoke at SCAD, I think about last year or year before. What consumers really want: authenticity. And the author gets into describing and helping us understand a little bit what authentic is. Here's a quote from that. People increasingly evaluate the world in terms of real and fake based on their views of what is and is not authentic. And that's not just relative to architecture and science, it's relative to products and everything else. You can see it almost on every store where it says authentic or original, those sorts of terms are used a lot in advertising. This is one of the most authentic and one of the best preserved motels that I came across. It was in Vero Beach, and the owner of the hotel, or motel, sort of prided himself in that and had pictures of the original from some of the same scenes. And even the interior of the hotel or motel was preserved pretty authentically. Now, this is what I would say is probably not very authentic, obviously. This was at a McDonald's in, I'm trying to remember which city it was in. It was in North Florida. And it was done sort of in a retro redo of the original McDonald's. I used to work at McDonald's when I was in high school, and this retro version was not even close. Here's the outside. At first glance, it appears a little bit like an older McDonald's, except it's about twice as big, and there was interior seating. There was no interior seating in the original McDonald's. You had to walk up to the windows and order through the window, right? And in the wintertime, it was really kind of cold out there. People would stand out in front of the window, and you'd pull open the little slot and take their orders and shove their food out. So it was quite a different experience than what they're trying to say that this is authentic. I ran into a guy here that worked there as an older gentleman, and I asked him about how long this place has been around. He said, "Oh, this has been around forever. This is one of the first ones." And I'm looking at him thinking, not in this condition, or not in this format it isn't one of the first ones. Another thing that's happening as mid-century modern becomes a little more popular, and I think it is sort of on a rise of popularity now, it has been for a while, is that you get people trying to mimic that. Here's a place in St. Augustine that was under construction, started under construction when I started this survey early last summer, and then by the time the end of the summer it was basically done. I didn't know what it was going to be, but it was built from scratch, trying to resemble sort of a mid-century modern building. This is an authentic one. This is Howley's in West Palm Beach. They have even the original sign up there, and their motto is Howley's, cooked in sight must be right, which is, and they really literally did cook right there as you sat at the bar or at the countertop there. You could see them cooking behind it. Great spot. I go back there all the time. Fake versus faux versus authentic. We like to think that something that is obviously inauthentic, or if we like something that is obviously inauthentic, then it's not fake, it's faux. You've seen faux jackets like leopard skin and those sorts of things, right? No one's going to believe that those are really leopard skin patterns or leopard skin pillows or all that sort of thing. So that's faux. That means it's something that's fake, but it's obviously fake and you like it. Fake is something that is not genuine. It's a forgery or sham. Something is claimed to be something that it is not. And that distinction is really something you can establish when you look at buildings and so forth. This is down in the MIMO district of Miami. Miami Modern, I think is where they got the name MIMO from. And it's an area of about, 10 or 12 blocks along US 1. And here's a current Chevron gas station that's, I think this would probably come across as fake rather than faux. But sometimes that distinction's, it says faux is something you like, fake is something you don't. But this one I don't particularly like because it's so obviously fake that I can't call it faux. And it's got these mid-century modern iconic squares overlapping that are sort of painted on the front of the facade here, trying to pretend it's old because it's in that district. Here's their sidewalk out in front that they've redone. I would call this one fake, just because it's so stupid to be having those mid-century Google icons on the sidewalk. They never would have done that back then. That wasn't anything that would ever have been, featured. And here it is sort of old and sort of looking like it's been there forever. And it was built, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. It's just sort of fallen apart a little bit, it faded. But so I consider that fake rather than faux. Faux, I think we already read this one, didn't I? All right, faux is technically artificial or imitation, but more often used to characterize something that is obviously fake and therefore we like. All right, this is faux, right? Yeah. They've painted some stuff on the side of this building, some flowers. We're not trying to be convinced that these are real flowers and real things. This is down in the Keys. But it's really kind of fun to see that. And we've got Christmas tree lights hanging up on the top and all that, so it's kind of an interesting little spot. One thing I don't like about this restaurant, and I didn't go in there to eat for this reason, is they got fluorescent lighting in the ceiling. And I think any restaurant that has fluorescent lighting, I'm not going to eat at it. So, that shows an absolutely disregard for color, which I teach. In fact, I just got through teaching a whole section of color theory, and how incandescent light or fluorescent lighting is just terrible for color. And these compact fluorescents are almost as bad. So, all right. This is a restaurant in, not a restaurant, a grocery store in Fort Worth, Florida, that I thought was authentic. I lived down in West Palm for a number of years, and I drove by it after not being there for a while. I thought, where did this come from? I never saw this before. This is a brand new Publix, but it picks up a lot of the architectural style from the 50s, from some of the original Publix. I don't know whether you want to call this fake or faux, because it's, I don't know if it's obviously fake. It's trying to be authentic, even though it's not, so.
You wouldn't think of it as a reproduction?
Well, I guess, yeah, maybe you could call it that.
That's the design they used in one of the earliest.
That's exactly right, yeah. I mean, it's authentic in the sense that it resembles original stores. That was not on that site, of course. They didn't have a Publix here originally.
And it's better than
So.
what they're doing now.
Well, yeah, I think so. I actually sort of liked it. That's a good point. Here's in Fort Lauderdale, and this would be called faux. I'm pretty safe calling this faux. It's supposed to look like a ship, right? But it's a hotel on the US 1, or it's on A1A, I guess. And I think it's a Sheraton now, if I'm right.
Is that the one that was the Clipper?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, very good. Yeah. And I stayed there. It's a great spot. No one's going to confuse this for a real ship, but it's faux in a sense. It's sort of an imitation, but it's fun, and you would like it. Authentic, let's talk about that. This is something that you would say is of undisputed origin, genuine, and based on historic reality. Now here's that same Clipper hotel in Fort Lauderdale, and I think it goes to the point that something can shift from faux to authentic over time. You've been maybe just seen some Polynesian restaurants or Hawaiian-themed restaurants that when they started out they were faux, but now they're treated as retro authentic, right? These are really things left over from the 50s, even though when they were first built they were not authentic to Florida at all. They were mimicking something from Hawaii. In fact, that makes me wonder, maybe I'll hold off that for a second until I get back to the Polynesian discussion. Here's also in the MIMO district, the New Yorker hotel, which is pretty authentic. The signage is neon, and they've maintained some of the colors and that sort of thing. They've done a good job on a number of those older hotels on Dixie Highway. It's down in the Keys. One of the things, if you see neon versus plastic face signs, that's probably a good sign that it's an original building. You don't see a lot of people building new neon. You see it occasionally, but a lot of times when I was in West Palm and when I also lived in Houston, I served on some sign review panels or committees. And in West Palm, as an example, neon was not allowed at all. They outlawed it back, I don't know when it first was outlawed, probably back in the 60s, thinking it was going to make things better. I like neon a lot better than plastic face signs, and we got them to change the ordinance to allow neon again. But for a long stretch of time, you couldn't put neon, particularly in the downtown area. This is down in the Keys again, and it's obviously an authentic neon sign. Here's back at Howley's, cooked in sight must be right. On the architecture is kind of modern. The sign out in front's neon that says restaurant. Here we are down in South Beach in Miami. Art Deco, this is a little bit outside the mid-century modern area. This goes back into the 30s and late 20s, early 30s. And that stuff is pretty well preserved. And there again, you see neon signs used pretty extensively. Okay, now the next few images here, I'm going to give you some clues, and some of you are familiar with these already, but to look for if you're trying to determine whether something is mid-century, that is 50s and 60s kind of architecture or signage. Number one, decorative tile blocks. You don't see that used as much today. It's not to say it's never used, but that was really a heyday of this sort of use of this building material. And in Florida, particularly, they're open air in the sense that they let air and breezes go through them. And they have all different kinds of patterns on them. You know, they're all, a lot of them are different arrangements. They became very decorative. Modernist architects generally didn't like that because it became decorative. And there was one thing a modernist hated was decoration. So here's a hotel down in the Keys with, again, some sort of a cantilevered-looking sign panel with the open-air concrete block. This is one of the more interesting forms of concrete block I saw. I don't think I've seen this any other place. And it's painted red, too. That's down in the Keys. Beautiful color combinations, though, and use of materials. Mosaic tile and coastal ions. In addition to concrete block, you sometimes see a lot of mosaic tiles. This is a bank currently now a bank in Fort Lauderdale. You can see that we have like about a 5-story tall, I think that's about 5 stories tall, mosaic tile pattern on the side of the building. And we got these space-age looking things also spanning all around it. You see a lot of coastal work with stone and tile as well. This is on the side of a motel in Fort Lauderdale. And then you see it also done, of course, in metalwork as well on these railings on a motel in the Keys. Cantilevered and folded roofs. This is a place in northern Florida. I don't remember the exact city right now. But look at the cantilever, that is that extension of the roof line well beyond the face of the building. When I was taking this photograph, the owner of the store came out and was defensive about it. Why are you taking a picture of my building? And I said, well, it's just wonderful architecture and all that, and he had no appreciation for it at all. And I was trying to build it up, saying, you know, you've got to maintain nice, it's nicely painted. He can understand that. But the architecture is what drew me to it. Here's some smaller cantilevers in a motel in Isla Mirada in the Keys. Again, you can see the overhangs. Flat roofs is another thing that was popular with modernist, mid-century modern architecture. This is at Carvel's Ice Cream in West Palm, and I thought, what wonderful looking ice cream cones coming out of the side of this thing, and neon on the front and so forth. This place has been around for years on US 1. Folded roofs. This is a place, I want to say Jacksonville Beach in North Florida. And it's got these, in addition to being cantilevered, it has these sort of envelope folds on the roofs, and that's another clue for mid-century modern. Wide mixture of materials. You guys, some of you have heard of Googie style, I'm sure. That was one of the characteristics of that style is the use of all sorts of materials, from stone to concrete to stucco to metal to plastic. You put them all together and you got a good indication of mid-century modern. This is currently a Hyatt hotel in Fort Lauderdale. You can see the mixture of materials on this one too. We've got sort of metal on the roofs, got stucco on the walls, you got different colors, pastel colors and so forth. Another one, this is in Fort Lauderdale as well, with that pink, if I remember right, was Mosaic tile. And then you've got a sort of metal-looking sun god thing on the side, and stucco, and I think these were metal edging on the trim around the roof line. And you got this latticework wood in the foreground. Bringing the outside in, that's another characteristic of mid-century modern. Up until that time, up until the 50s basically, you would never have things like stone or brick exposed on the inside. That was considered exterior material. This is at a hotel in Fort Lauderdale, and you can see they've got extensive use of native stone. It might even be coquina, which is sort of a stone that you would find along, that comes out of shell rock, on the inside of the building. And again, we take it for granted today, but at the time that was pretty revolutionary. This is the inside of that hotel or motel I showed you at the beginning. I said the owner was so proud of the fact he was keeping it authentic. He was even furnishing the rooms. Each room in the hotel had a slightly different theme to it. But you see exposed concrete block on the inside walls. Again, you would never have seen that back prior to the mid-century modern movement. You wouldn't be putting concrete block on the inside. That was an exterior material. But this guy did a really authentic job with the furnishings and everything in it. This is at a place I think called the Mai Kai, if I have there, or Mai Tai in Fort Lauderdale. And you can see that it's the inside of a bar, and these people are sitting there. Did you guys have a conference there in South Florida? Oh, there was somebody had a conference there a few years ago. Anyway, there's a mermaid show that takes place behind the bar there every night, which is kind of cool. Space age symbols. The whole space race thing got really in gear in the late 50s. And so it got picked up a lot in architecture and symbols. This is from Cape Canaveral, of course. One of the things I found interesting when I took this picture, I didn't even realize until I showed up on a big screen when I got home, were those little pointed things on the top of the signs. Can you see those? Yeah, exactly. Somebody had, either they discovered it the hard way, that pigeons were standing on there and destroying their signs, or somebody was really smart and knew what to do to start with. It'd be interesting to know which came first, the pigeons or the pigeon preventers. So, this is a close-up, again, of that Hyatt Hotel in Fort Lauderdale with the sort of space age, even the way they've got these angular porches or patios that come out on the sides, and the roof lines and the cantilevers. And I don't know what this thing on top does. It looks like a spaceship landed on top of it. But it's really kind of fun. This is at that bank. Again, we've got lights and extensions coming out of the top of the building. Very space age. Looks like it's out of a Flash Gordon film or something. And then back at Howley's again. Howley's cooked in sight must be right, with the sort of exploding looking chandelier with little starburst patterns on the outside. Also space, sort of space themed decor. Hawaiian theme and icons. Now this is interesting because when you go into a lot of places in Florida and they feature Hawaiian themed stuff, you wonder, isn't Florida good enough that you have to pretend it's Hawaii? Would you go to Hawaii and then see a Florida-themed restaurant or a Florida-themed motel, So it's almost like it represents some kind of inferiority complex. Anyway, this is called the Hawaiian Inn, I guess, yeah. Here's the Aku Tiki Inn. These are all in Fort Lauderdale. And it's not just Hawaiian, it's Polynesian in general. Part of that popularity with Hawaiian-themed stuff came about when Hawaii became, the 50th state, right? Alaska was the 49th, which I think was in the late 50s, wasn't it? So that became a thematic thing, and not just architecture, but clothing and furnishings and a lot of things. This is at that Mai Kai restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. Oh, there it is. There's their sign, too. Fountains and all the vegetation and so forth. It's kind of an interesting place. I went there to eat one night, and it was so packed, and it was during the middle of the week that it was like an hour wait. And I thought, boy, this place is just really booming with popularity now. Here we are at Howley's again. I seem to like to hang out there. Howley's, cooked in sight must be right. And we got this dancing hula girl on a lamp, which I thought was hilarious. And it was there for a number of years. Last time I was there this summer, it was gone. They must have sold it or something, I don't know. But I wanted to sit, I like to sit right next to it. All right, and then as far as neon and not plastic signs, again, neon, if you see neon, it's a good indication that it's probably pretty old, though, again, you do see a little bit of it today. I think I remember as a kid, a lot of you guys do too, coming into towns and seeing the neon on the signs and so forth, and there was a statement I read somewhere, you can judge a hotel or motel by its neon. And there may be some truth to that. Again, there's another example of that restaurant I showed you at the beginning of the slideshow with the checkerboard pattern on the side. And this is a classic place. Some of you may have seen this down the Keys, right? Green Turtle Inn, a beautiful neon sign there as well. And I think that's about it. That's the cover of my book. That's a place down in the Keys. It was just hilarious to see this giant lobster there. And I was thinking, why do we have all these giant animals in the Keys? Because they do a lot of these sorts of things, like giant lobsters or giant dolphins, or there's one place that's a giant rhinoceros on top of a sign or near a sign, giant seashells. And, I think it might be in part, I haven't researched enough to really verify this, it's a way to get around the sign ordinances. Because this is not a sign, this is sculpture, or this is art. And therefore, you can make it as big as you want. And I have a feeling, again, it'd be one thing that I need to research, that might have been the motivation and what allowed these sort of things to happen. And I think they're great, I think they're wonderful, I love them. So thank you.